Imagine being mocked for your appearance, abandoned by the one you loved,
I saved you
and
from a life of
shunned by
spinster,
your
and this is
entire
how you repay
town.
the town's
This is the
decency?
story of Lenora Whitford, a red-haired, misunderstood young woman in the 1800s, whose life changes forever
Lord, if
when she
you
meets
hear me,
Chaska, a
send me
brave and
someone who
handsome
will
Sioux
not laugh
warrior.
at me.
Will their love survive the cruelty of society, betrayal, and impossible odds? Watch this epic historical Western romance unfold.
The year was 1854, Wyoming Territory. The dust of the town of Willow Bend seemed to settle permanently on Lenora's soul. At 24, Lenora was a woman of ample curves and flaming red hair, features the harsh townsfolk deemed unfortunate. She was a skilled milliner, her fingers capable of twisting silk and velvet into dreams, yet her own life was a nightmare of rejection. Lenora Whitford stood outside the whitewashed chapel, her red curls pinned beneath a simple bonnet she had sewn herself, hands trembling around her bouquet of wildflowers. She had dreamed of this day since she was a girl, a home, a husband, a future where she finally belonged, but instead she heard the whisper before she saw the truth. "He ain't comin', Lenora," murmured old Mrs. Hawkins, pity in her tone. Her breath cracked. No, he wouldn't. Yet there, at the end of the dusty road, she saw the truth. Elias riding hard, Sarah's golden hair flying behind him like a banner of triumph. The crowd gasped. Lenora's world caved in, and then the laughter began. She ought to know no man wants a girl shaped like a cooking pot, too plain, too fat, too desperate. Their cruelty sliced deeper than any blade. Lenora felt her cheeks flame as if set ablaze. She dropped the bouquet and fled, running until her lungs burned, until her vision blurred. By evening, she returned home broken. Her mother, gentle-voiced Martha Whitford, pulled her into warm arms. "My child," she whispered, stroking Lenora's tear-wet hair, "God sees your heart, and he rewards the gentle ones. Wipe your tears, this hurt will pass." But Lenora did not believe her. Not yet. Outside her window, the townsfolk still whispered, their words sharp as thorns. And somewhere far beyond the wheat fields, in the silent shadows of the plains, Chaska, a warrior of the Oglala Sioux tribe, watched the smoke from town rise like a signal. He did not know her name yet, but fate had already begun to weave their threads together. 2 months ago, her groom, Elias, had left her standing at the altar. He hadn't just left. He had announced to the congregation that he could not bed a woman the size of a heifer. He left her for Sarah, Lenora's childhood friend, a slender, golden-haired beauty with a heart as cold as a winter creek. Each day passed carrying its own sting. Lenora poured herself into her small millinery shop, stitching ribbons, shaping bonnets, trimming hats with feathers and flowers. Her hands worked beautifully, though her heart felt hollow. The townsfolk still whispered, "Poor thing," they'd say as they passed. Should have known better than to think a man like Elias would marry her. Yet she endured. The bell above the shop door jingled. Lenora froze. Sarah walked in, clutching Elias's arm. The air in the shop grew stifling. "Lenora," Sarah chirped, her voice falsely sweet. "We need your services." Lenora gripped the counter, her knuckles white. "My services? For the wedding, of course," Sarah smiled, smoothing her slim waist. "I need a bonnet, something breathtaking. Since you won't be needing your bridal skills, I thought you could make mine." Elias smirked, looking around the shop. "Make sure it fits a true beauty, Lenora. Not, well, you know." Sarah leaned in, her whisper like a viper's hiss. Do a good job. You know you are ugly and fat. No man will ever want you. At least be useful." They left, leaving laughter in their wake. Lenora locked the shop early. At home, she cried as though years of pain finally broke free. Her mother found her crumpled on the floor and held her close, stroking her hair. "God sees the heart, my child. He rewards us with our heart's desires. Your worth isn't in their eyes," Martha whispered. "One day, child, someone will see you, truly see you. Wipe your tears." But the tears would not stop. But Lenora doubted such a man existed. Yet beyond the pines at the town's edge, Chaska stood watching the river. The wind carried a woman's sobs. He turned toward the sound, something ancient stirring within him. A storm was coming, one that would change both their lives forever. The town felt like a prison of whispering eyes. The following evening, seeking escape, Lenora walked until her boots were coated in prairie dust. She went to the outskirts, where the manicured lawns of the town gave way to the wild, untamed grass of the open plains. She sat by the riverbank, where the water rushed over smooth stones, drowning out the memory of Sarah's laughter. Lenora removed her bonnet, letting her heavy red hair tumble down her back. She looked at her reflection in the water, round cheeks, tear-stained eyes, a body that took up space. She hated it all. "Why?" she screamed at the water. "Why made me this way?" "They all hate me," she cried. I try so hard. Why am I never enough?" Her tears fell into the water, carried downstream like pieces of her breaking heart. Unknown to her, she was not alone. Across the river, hidden by the thick trunk of a cottonwood tree, stood Chaska. He was a Sioux warrior, 29 winters old, and eyes that held the depth of the night sky. His long dark hair lifted in the breeze, braids tied with leather and small beads. His bronze skin glowed beneath the gold light. He was tall, rugged, and muscular, a man who lived by the rhythm of the earth. He had seen sorrow before, but never sorrow as raw as hers. Something inside him shifted. Lenora pressed her hands to her face. "Lord, if you hear me, please send me someone who will not laugh at me." The plea pierced him. He had seen the civilized people of the town. They were loud and cruel. But this woman was different. To his eyes, her hair was like the setting sun, and her sorrow was a heavy storm. He did not see fat. He saw a woman of substance and strength who was breaking. He should have left. It was dangerous to be this close to the settlement, but the sound of her pain held him rooted to the spot. He stepped out from the shadows, snapping a twig. Lenora gasped, turning around. Her eyes widened in terror. A savage. That's what her father called them. But as she looked at him, she didn't see a monster. She saw a man looking at her not with disgust, but with intense curiosity. Fear gripped Lenora's throat, but she could not move. The warrior stood on the opposite bank, the river acting as a shimmering barrier between their worlds. He held a bow, but it was lowered, unthreatening. Chaska saw the fear in the woman with the fire hair. He slowly raised a hand, palm open, a universal sign of peace. He did not speak English well, but he knew the language of spirit. He pointed to his chest. "Chaska," he said, his voice deep and resonant, carrying over the water. Lenora trembled. "Lenora," she whispered, though he likely couldn't hear. He stepped onto a large stone in the river. Lenora flinched, gathering her skirts to run. Chaska stopped. Lenora's pulse drummed in her ears as she stood before Chaska. No townsman had ever looked at her the way he did, steady, patient, as though she were not a spectacle but a person of worth. She clutched her shawl tighter. I should go." Chaska took one slow step forward, his expression unreadable. "You hurt," he said softly, "but you hide it. Why?" His English was imperfect, yet his sincerity struck deeper than any polished words ever had. Lenora shook her head. "You wouldn't understand. My own town. They mock me. They always have." Chaska's jaw tightened, cruel tongues. His voice darkened. "Coward hearts." She blinked at the sudden fire in him. He lowered his gaze to the river. "My people say, the river takes sorrow but gives strength. You give sorrow today. Strength will come later." Her breath trembled. No one had ever tried to comfort her this way. The wind rustled the willows, brushing loose curls around her face. Chaska's eyes followed the movement, not with lust but reverence, as though he saw something precious. She couldn't see herself. "You should not be alone here," he said. "Nor should you," she whispered. "If anyone from town saw you." He lifted his chin. "I fear no town." But she did. Her father feared the Sioux. Townsfolk hated them. She knew what a single whispered rumor could spark. Violence, accusations, bloodshed. "I must go," she said again, more firmly. Chaska nodded once, though disappointment flickered across his features. "I will watch from far," he murmured. keep you safe." Her heart stuttered. "Why? You do not know me." His gaze held hers with quiet intensity. "Not know, but see." She stepped back, her breath unsteady, her pulse unsteady. Forbidden, wrong, dangerous. And yet she walked away feeling seen for the very first time. 3 days passed. Lenora tried to forget the warrior by the river. His voice, his eyes, the strange stillness he carried. But she felt him everywhere. In the whisper of the wind, in the rustling of pine needles, in the sudden warmth in her chest. And each evening she returned to the river. Not to see him, she told herself, clutching her shawl tighter. Just to be alone. But she always felt his presence long before he appeared. She brought him fresh bread. He brought her wild berries. In the silence of the prairie, with no townsfolk to judge her waistline, Lenora felt beautiful. That evening, when the sun bled orange across the water, Chaska stepped out of the trees, silent as moonlight. He reached into the pouch at his waist and pulled out a small, intricately carved wooden bird. He placed it on a rock in the middle of the river, then stepped back to his side. Lenora waited for her heart to stop hammering. Cautiously, she stepped onto the stones, water lapping at her boots. She picked up the carving. It was a hawk, smooth and perfect. It was beautiful. For the first time in months, someone had offered her kindness instead of ridicule. And it had come from a man her people wanted dead. Lenora stared at the carving. I can't accept this." Chaska's brow furrowed. "Gift, not bargain." "I know," she whispered, "but people would not understand." He tilted his head slightly. "Do you fear them?" "Every day," she confessed, her throat tightening. "They say I am unworthy, that no man would ever want me." Chaska's eyes darkened, his voice lowering like distant thunder. "Men blind," he murmured, "but I see fire in you, not weakness." Her breath caught. Before she could speak, a sharp snap echoed from the trees. Lenora stiffened. Voices, male voices, town voices. Chaska reacted instantly, stepping back into the shadows, vanishing as swiftly as a hunted wolf. 2 young men from town emerged, snickering as they approached the riverbank. "What are you doing out here alone again, Lenora?"
Looking for someone?
"Looking for someone? Or something?" She held the pouch behind her skirt, heart pounding. If they had arrived seconds earlier, if they had seen Chaska, bloodshed would have stained the river that night. The 2 men eventually left, laughing into the dusk. Lenora stood frozen until their footsteps faded entirely. Only then did Chaska emerge again, silent as a shadow. "Are you harmed?" he asked. "No," she whispered, breathless. "But they nearly saw you." Chaska studied her with a heavy gaze. "Danger grows. You must not come here at night." "I can't avoid this place," she said, voice trembling.
It's the only place where I can breathe.
"It's the only place where I can breathe." A soft silence fell between them. Chaska stepped closer, not touching but near enough that she felt the warmth of him. "You are brave, Lenora, brave to stand alone." Her throat tightened. "I don't feel brave." "Then I will be brave for both of us." The words shook her. "But why?" she asked. "Why do you speak to me? Why do you stay?" He hesitated, muscles taut as if fighting something within himself. "At first, I hear your tears," he said quietly. "Then I see your heart." His voice softened. "And now, I cannot walk away." Her breath broke. This was forbidden, dangerous, impossible. She turned away, trembling. People would never allow this. Chaska's jaw hardened. "People fear what they do not understand." "But they hate your people," she whispered. "They hate me too." He exhaled slowly. "Then we share same wound." For the first time, she truly looked at him, not as a stranger, but as someone carrying his own bruised history. "What would happen," she dared to ask, "if we kept meeting here?" Chaska's answer came soft, but fierce. "Then we walk a hard road, but a true one." Her pulse fluttered wildly. Somewhere deep inside, a forbidden flame took root, small, trembling but unstoppable. And the river, silent witness to their growing bond, carried their secret downstream into the dark. The summer sun beat down on the prairie, but for Lenora and Chaska, the world was cool and shaded beneath the cottonwoods. Weeks had turned into a season of secret devotion. They had moved past silence into broken sentences and the language of touch. Chaska did not care for the rigid corsets that bound her. He traced the softness of her jaw and called her Pedawi, firewoman. You stay? Chaska asked, his thumb brushing a stray red curl from her forehead. I must go, Lenora whispered, her heart aching. My father suspects. He watches the clock like a hawk. Reluctantly, she left him. Lenora crept inside her home late that evening, her cheeks flushed, her heart still fluttering wildly. She prayed her father was already asleep. He wasn't. Silas Whitford sat at the kitchen table, whiskey bottle half empty, his expression dark as a storm-torn sky. Where have you been? His voice cracked the air like a whip. Lenora's breath froze. Just the river, Papa. I needed fresh air. At this hour, he boomed, slamming his fist onto the table. I've heard talk, girl. Folks say you wander off. Folks say you're seen near the woods, near the Sioux trails. Her blood ran cold. No, Papa, Have you lost your... Samuel shot to his feet, towering over her. Have you lost your senses? After what happened with Elias? After this whole town's been gossiping about your foolishness? Tears stung her eyes. I did nothing wrong. Wrong? He roared. A Sioux man could slit your throat, steal you away. He would never. She burst out before she could stop herself. The room went dead still. Silas's face twisted with fury. So it's true. He stepped toward her, voice dropping to a terrifying growl. You shame this family? With one of them? I don't, Papa, please. Just listen. But he grabbed her arm, dragging her toward her bedroom. Enough. I will not have my daughter corrupted by savages. Stop, she cried. But he threw her inside the room and slammed the door. A heavy chain clanked as he locked it from the outside. You'll stay there, he snarled, until you remember who you are. Papa, she screamed, pounding the door. Please. But her only answer was his footsteps fading away, leaving her in cold darkness. Locked, trapped, starving, helpless. And Chaska, she feared he would think she abandoned him. The nights grew colder without Lenora at the river. Chaska returned again and again, each dusk bringing new worry, each dawn leaving him hollow. Days slipped into weeks. He searched the edges of town, though he dared not go near the streets. A Sioux man venturing close risked bullets long before questions. Every path he knew, every sign he read from the earth told him nothing. Lenora had vanished as if the wind had swallowed her. He waited still. Hope was a stubborn fire in him. Meanwhile, Lenora's world shrank to four walls. Her father's lock kept her from the outside, and grief kept her from sleep. She pressed her ear against the cold door each night, praying to hear Chaska's gentle voice. She did not know that he waited beneath the moon, listening for her in return. Her mother, Martha, watched her daughter fade, her cheeks hollowing, her hope dimming. She could not bear it any longer. One stormy evening, as her husband slept off whiskey in his chair, Martha crept down the hall with a lantern. Her hands trembled as she fit a small iron tool into the lock. Click. The sound might as well have been thunder. The door eased open, and Lenora, weak and pale, lifted her head. Mama? Martha rushed to her, gathering her into trembling arms. My sweet child, she whispered, tears slipping into Lenora's hair. I will not let him break you. Lenora clung to her as though drowning. Mama, I thought I was forgotten. You could never be, Martha said fiercely. Not by me. But their reunion was shattered when Silas Whitford stormed down the hall, fury blazing in his eyes. What in God's name are you doing? He thundered. I locked her for her own good. Martha stood her ground, pushing Lenora behind her. For her good? Look at her. She's wasting away. What has gotten into you, Silas? It's not enough she was a laughingstock to the whole town? Silas's face darkened. I want the best for my daughter. And what of Elias? Martha demanded, voice rising. What did you do when he disgraced her, when he abandoned her? Nothing. Yet now you break her to save your pride? Enough, woman, Silas roared. I will not have my daughter entangled with a savage. What will people say? People? Martha spat. People do not live in this house. We do. Silence fell, hot, sharp, trembling. That very night, as emotions smoldered behind closed doors, a tall shadow moved through the wheat fields. The argument it ended in a stalemate, but the door remained unlocked. That night, the house fell into an uneasy slumber. Silas sat on the porch with his shotgun for hours before finally succumbing to sleep in his chair inside. Lenora lay awake, her strength slowly returning. With the broth her mother had smuggled in, a soft tap at the window made her jump. It was barely louder than a moth's wing. She moved to the sash and lifted it. Below, in the shadow of the rose bushes, crouched Chaska. He looked wild, his hair loose, his chest heaving, as if he had run for miles. He had summoned a courage that defied the laws of the territory. To come this close to the white man's dwelling was to invite death. Chaska, she breathed, the name a prayer. He effortlessly scaled the trellis, gripping the window ledge. His dark eyes scanned her face, noting the pallor, the hollowness in her cheeks. A low growl rumbled in his chest, a sound of pure protective fury. "They hurt you," he whispered, his English broken but his meaning clear. "I take you, now." "We cannot," Lenora wept softly, reaching out to touch his face. "My father, he has men watching the roads. If they catch you." "I fear no man," Chaska said, gripping her hand. "I fear only a life without fire, woman. Come." Lenora looked back at her rune, the cage of her childhood. Then she looked at the warrior who risked his life just to see her breathe. The choice was made. The night air was cool, but Lenora's palms were sweating. With Chaska's help, she descended the trellis, the wood creaking under her weight. When her boots touched the soil, she felt a fleeting moment of freedom. They turned to run toward the tree line, hand in hand. Suddenly, torches flared to life, blinding them. Silas stepped out from the barn, flanked by 3 ranch hands holding rifles. "I knew you'd try it," Silas growled, racking his shotgun. "Get away from him, Lenora." "No," Lenora screamed, stepping in front of Chaska. "I love him." "You are sick," Silas spat. "Take her." The men lunged. Chaska moved with the speed of the cougar, shoving Lenora behind him. He drew his knife, slashing at the first man, but they were outnumbered. A ranch hand clubbed Chaska from behind, sending him to his knees. Lenora shrieked, clawing at the men, dragging her away. Chaska roared, rising again, his eyes wild. He lunged for Silas. Bang! The gunshot shattered the night. Chaska jerked backward, a bloom of red spreading on his shoulder. He collapsed into the dust. "Leave him," Silas commanded as the warrior gasped for breath. "Let the coyotes finish him. It's more than he deserves." Lenora kicked and screamed, "You killed him, you murderers!" But she was powerless. She was hauled back into the house, her eyes fixed on the still, dark form of the man she loved, bleeding out onto the cold earth. Chaska fought the darkness. The pain in his shoulder was a fire that would not go out. He lay in the tall grass, the sun baking his skin, flies buzzing near his wound. He prepared to sing his death song. "Brother," a voice pierced the haze. It was Aponi, his sister. She and her betrothed, Hiemovi, had been hunting nearby when they saw the vultures circling. They rushed to him, their faces pale with shock. "He is alive," Hiemovi said, inspecting the wound. The bullet went through. They fashioned a travois from branches and dragged him miles back to their camp, hidden deep in the canyons. For 3 days, Chaska burned with fever. Aponi applied poultices of sage and mud, chanting prayers to the spirits. When Chaska finally opened his eyes, he did not find relief. He found the stern face of his father. "The chief." "You live," the chief said, his voice hard as flint. "But you have brought danger to our door." Chaska tried to sit up, wincing. "Father." Silence. The chief stood tall. "We struggle enough to keep our land. You go to the white settlement? You court one of their women? If the soldiers come looking for you, they will kill us all." The elders nodded in agreement. "If you go back to her," his father warned, "you are exiled. You will be no son of mine. We cannot bring the wrath of the white men to our tribe for the sake of a woman." The news spread faster than a prairie fire. By the next morning, every soul in Willow Creek knew the scandalous tale. The gossip mongers gathered at the general store, whispering behind their hands. "Did you hear?" Mrs. Gable clucked. That fat, plain redhead ran off with a dirty savage. Desperate she was, another laughed. Couldn't keep a white man, so she lowered herself to a beast. Lenora was a prisoner in her own home, but the humiliation seeped through the walls. When she was finally allowed to sit on the porch, strictly guarded, Elias and Sarah rode by in their buggy. Sarah looked radiant, her blonde curls bouncing, while Lenora looked hollow, her eyes swollen shut from weeping. Elias pulled the buggy to a halt. "Well, well," he sneered. "I saved you from a life of spinsterhood, and this is how you repay the town's decency? Running with Indians?" "Look at her, Elias," Sarah giggled, adjusting her silk gloves. "She's lost her mind. Perhaps the savage wanted her for her cattle, not her looks." "Certainly not her looks." Lenora said nothing. She stared past them toward the horizon. Inside, something in her had died along with Chaska. She felt heavy, not just in body but in spirit. The town saw a monster. She saw only the emptiness where her heart used to be. 2 months crawled by, like a wounded snake. The summer heat turned to the crisp brown of early autumn, mirroring the decaying hope in Lenora's heart. She sat by the window day after day, staring at the horizon where the sun dipped into the Sioux lands. She had stopped eating. Food tasted like ash in her mouth. The curves that the town had mocked began to melt away, but not from health or vanity, from sheer, consuming grief. Her once tight dresses now hung on her frame like sheets on a line. Her cheeks hollowed, making her green eyes look enormous and haunted. "She is fading, Silas," Martha whispered one evening, watching Lenora refuse supper again. "She is dying of a broken heart." Silas paced the floor, his boots heavy on the wood. He was restless. He had thought separating her from the savage would cure her. But instead, he was watching his only child wither. He felt a pang of guilt he would never admit aloud. Chaska, too, was suffering. He had healed, but his spirit was caged. He climbed the ridge daily, looking toward the town. He saw the smoke from her chimney, but he could not go to her. The town was on high alert, and his father's threat hung over him. To go to her was to doom his people. He could only send his spirit on the wind, hoping she could feel him. One fateful Tuesday evening, the sleepy rhythm of Willow Creek was shattered. A carriage, black as midnight and trimmed with gold leaf, rolled down the dusty main street. It was pulled by 4 magnificent white horses, beasts far finer than any ranch horse in the territory. The townsfolk stopped dead in their tracks. The blacksmith dropped his hammer. The shopkeepers peered out their windows. Such wealth was never seen in these parts. The carriage bypassed the hotel and the mayor's house, rolling straight up the hill to Silas's farm. Lenora was on the porch, shelling peas mechanically. She looked up, startled. A footman jumped down and opened the carriage door. Out stepped an elderly woman, frail but dressed in the finest purple silk and lace. It was Aunt Beatrice, Lenora's maternal aunt. She was a widow who lived in the city, a woman Silas hadn't spoken to in 20 years. "Aunt Beatrice?" Lenora gasped, standing up. Her dress billowed around her thin frame. Beatrice looked at her niece, whom she hadn't seen since Lenora was 4. She saw the sadness etched in the young woman's face. "My dear," Beatrice wheezed, leaning on her cane, "you look like a ghost. Let us go inside." She stayed for a week. Though sick and dying, Beatrice had sharp eyes. She saw the cruelty of the town, the sorrow in the house, and the fire dormant in Lenora. When she left, she kissed Lenora's forehead. "Do not let this town shrink you, child. You are made for greater things." A month later, a letter arrived with a black wax seal. Aunt Beatrice had passed. The reading of the will was the talk of the county. Lenora sat in a lawyer's office, her parents beside her. The solicitor cleared his throat. "To my niece Lenora, I leave everything. My estate in the Northern Territory, 50,000 acres of prime grazing land, 3,000 head of cattle, and my personal fortune." The silence in the room was deafening. In the blink of an eye, the fat, plain redhead had become the wealthiest woman in the territory. The news traveled faster than the wind. Suddenly, the townsfolk who had spat on her name were tipping their hats. "Good morning, Miss Lenora," they would say, their smiles oily and fake. Lenora ignored them all, her expression cold as ice. In the saloon, Elias heard the news. He choked on his whiskey. He looked at Sarah, who was fretting over the cost of flour. A greedy light ignited in his eyes. He remembered the engagement ring Lenora had returned. He remembered the vast lands mentioned in the will. She's rich, Elias muttered, wiping his mouth. Filthy rich. She hates you, a drinker laughed. Elias stood up, adjusting his vest. She loved me once. A woman's heart is soft. I just need to remind her of what we had. He walked out, leaving Sarah behind, his mind already counting cattle that weren't his. The very next afternoon, Elias arrived at the farmhouse. He wore his Sunday best, a fresh flower in his lapel, and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He found Lenora in the parlor. She didn't rise to greet him. She sat like a queen, her new black mourning dress emphasizing her pale, slender elegance. "Oh, sweet Lenora," Elias crooned, hat in hand. "I have been a fool. I was blinded. But I see clearly now. I am sorry for treating you the way I did. Please forgive me. I truly love you." Lenora laughed, a cold, sharp sound. "Love? You love my aunt's cattle, Elias. You love the acres of land attached to my name." Elias stepped forward, feigning hurt. "No, I swear it. We were meant to be." "You are a wicked, selfish, and greedy man," Lenora said, her voice steady. "I will never be yours again. I have found love in the hands of another man. A man with honor." Elias's face twisted. "Don't tell me it is that smelly savage? That dirty Indian?" "He is better than you could ever be," Lenora declared, standing up. "You'd choose a dog over me?" Elias shouted, raising a hand. Suddenly, Silas appeared in the doorway, a heavy shotgun in the crook of his arm. He had been listening. He saw the greed dripping from Elias, the man who had humiliated his daughter and now sought to steal her fortune. "Get out," Silas growled, cocking the gun. "Get off my land, Elias, before I bury you on it." Elias fled, cursing, but his eyes held a dangerous promise of revenge. Night fell, thick and moonless. Lenora knew she was not safe. Elias would not stop. His greed was a hungry beast. She went to the back porch, holding a lantern high, then lowered it 3 times, a signal she prayed Chaska would see. An hour later, a shadow detached itself from the barn. Chaska appeared, moving silently. He looked weary, but his eyes lit up when he saw her. "My father chased Elias away," she whispered urgently, pulling him into the shadows. "But he will come back with men. He wants my inheritance." "I will kill him," Chaska said simply, his hand drifting to his knife. "No," Lenora gripped his arm. "No more blood. We have a way out. My aunt left me land, vast land, far to the north in the Montana Territory. The letter says the people there are fair to your kind. We can run away, Chaska, tonight." Chaska looked at her, then at the vast, dark prairie. He knew his own people had exiled him in spirit, and the white town wanted him dead. "To the north? Yes, a place where we can have a peaceful life together. Pack your things, firewoman," Chaska said, kissing her knuckles. "I will prepare 2 horses. We ride before the sun." They moved with the desperation of lovers running out of time. Lenora packed a satchel with deeds, money, and food. She left a note for her mother, promising she would send word when they were safe. She was leaving the girl she was behind to become the woman she was meant to be. The sky was turning a bruised purple with the approach of dawn as they mounted the horses near the creek. They were miles from the house, believing they were safe, when a shot rang out, kicking up dirt near Chaska's horse. "Going somewhere, heiress?" Elias emerged from a cluster of rocks, a rifle aimed at Chaska's chest. Sarah was with him, looking disheveled and manic, holding a lantern. "You thought you could steal my fortune and run off with him," Elias sneered. "I'm the sheriff's deputy now. I can shoot a horse thief, and no one will blink." "He stole nothing," Lenora cried. "He stole you," Sarah shrieked, her jealousy ugly in the lantern light. "Shoot him, Elias. Shoot the savage." Elias squeezed the trigger, but Chaska was faster. He kicked his horse, rearing it up. The bullet grazed the saddlebag. Chaska launched himself from his horse, tackling Elias to the ground. They rolled in the dirt, fists flying. Sarah screamed, dropping the lantern. The dry grass caught fire instantly. Chaska, powered by a season of suppressed rage, delivered a crushing blow to Elias's jaw, knocking him unconscious. He stood up, chest heaving, the fire spreading between them and their enemies. "Ride," Chaska yelled, vaulting back onto his horse. They galloped through the smoke, leaving Elias broken in the dirt and Sarah screaming at the flames. They didn't look back. They rode north, towards the mountains, towards the unknown, with the rising sun chasing their shadows. The journey north was a gauntlet of ice and wind. For weeks, Lenora and Chaska rode through the changing seasons, sleeping under the stars, their bodies warming each other against the creeping frost of the high country. They faced blizzards that threatened to bury them, and rivers swollen with early thaw, but their bond was the anchor that held them fast. When they finally crested the ridge overlooking Aunt Beatrice's estate in the Montana Territory, Lenora gasped. It was not just a farm, it was a kingdom. Green valleys stretched endlessly, dotted with thousands of cattle. The ranch house was a sprawling timber mansion, smoke curling invitingly from its stone chimneys. They rode down, wary of the reception. But the foreman, a gruff Scotsman named McGregor, greeted them not with a gun, but with a tipped hat. He looked at Chaska, then at Lenora, and nodded. "We heard you were coming, miss. Your aunt wrote of you often, and here, a man is judged by his work, not his blood." It was a sanctuary. The local town, Highwater, was a trading post where trappers, settlers, and the local indigenous tribes traded freely. There were no hushed whispers, no sneers. Lenora took her place as the mistress of the estate, but she ruled with a gentle hand. Chaska, with his knowledge of the land and animals, became the heart of the operation. He earned the respect of the ranch hands by breaking the wildest stallions and predicting the storms. For the first time, they were free. 2 years brought prosperity that Willow Creek could only dream of. One autumn afternoon, as the aspen trees turned to gold, Lenora sat on the porch rocking a cradle. Inside slept 2 babies, a boy and a girl, with skin like warm honey and tufts of copper hair. A heavy covered wagon, loaded high with trunks and furniture, rumbled through the main gate. Chaska stood by the fence, watching carefully. The wagon stopped, and Silas and Martha climbed down. Silas looked older, his shoulders stooped, face replaced by a weary sorrow. Lenora stood, her heart hammering. Silas walked up the steps, hat in hand, tears streaming into his gray beard. "Lenora," he choked out, I was a fool, a blind, hateful fool." He fell to his knees before her and Chaska. "I have sold the farm in Willow Creek. I sold it all. There is nothing there for us but shame and ghosts. I came to beg for your forgiveness, daughter, and yours, Chaska." Martha rushed forward, hugging Lenora tightly. "We missed you so much. We couldn't bear the silence of that house one more day." Lenora looked at Chaska. The warrior looked at the old man kneeling in the dust, then extended a strong hand to pull him up. "The past is dust," Chaska said. "Welcome home." They never returned to Willow Creek. Silas and Martha moved into the big house, filling it with the laughter of grandparents. Silas taught his grandson to fish, while Martha helped Lenora with the millinery shop she opened in town. The hate was forgotten, buried under the Montana soil, and they lived out their days in a peace that no one could ever take away. If you love this epic 1800s Western romance, smash the like button, subscribe for more Netflix-style historical love stories, and drop a comment sharing your favorite moment between Lenora and Chaska. Don't forget to share this story with friends who love drama, suspense, and forbidden love. Stay tuned for more epic tales of love, heartbreak, and triumph.